It's me, Professor Tree, and today I'm going to explore the recent leaks and info surrounding today's Nintendo Direct. Let's go! So first up is this rather interesting image I found on 4chan, where somebody claims to have details about the DLC that might be announced in today's Nintendo Direct, going on to talk about the potential name of the third legendary and the information surrounding the story details of the DLC. The first thing of note is I'm pretty sure this is a fake one, as the name he gives the third legendary is Maimyu, which when translated means nothing particularly interesting in Japanese, mainly denoting to the music specifically, with the direct translation being every music, which makes no sense. It's a very literal translation. So overall, I'm pretty sure this isn't legit, as we compare this to the name of the box legendary Pokemon, and we have the past and future aspect of them represented in the names. For example, Koraidon has Korai, which is past, and Miraidon has Mirai, which means future. So overall, I'm not massively confident on this, as overall it kind of feels like they're trying to sort of make a leak that looks real, but is actually rather fake. But regardless of the legitimacy of this leak, let's talk about their quote-unquote story that they found for this DLC. The DLC supposedly takes place in a second crater like Area 1, and according to this leaker, it's controlled by two tribes, one which represents the future and the other that represents the past. This feels kind of stale to me, as the game's whole entire theme was the past and the future of the Pokemon world, respectively in their individual games. What I personally feel is more likely is a time travel based DLC where we explore Paldea of the past, perhaps during the Kalos War, as I'm still personally a believer that the theory behind the Area Zero crater being created by the ultimate weapon that AZ fired back in the X and Y storyline would make way more sense, given the fact that Paldea and Kalos are geographically sharing a land border, as they're based on France and Spain in real life, which are connected by the Iberian Peninsula. Moving on to a great bit of news regarding the new games is also the fact that the Pokemon Home update is coming out in April, as it was announced back on Twitter earlier this year, and that's brilliant news for players across the globe, as it will allow them to transform their Pokemon that they've caught in other adventures. But remember, due to the game having a limited Pokedex, like previous entries in the series like Sword and Shield, it will be restricted to certain Pokemon, at least until that changes, as recently there was an accidental leak of the World Tournament, where sprites for Pokemon that have not yet been released for Scarlet and Violet have had their Scarlet and Violet sprites shown. So overall, it's a very exciting thing, as they may have inadvertently teased the potential Dex expansion DLC for the near future, and I'm honestly all for it, as we have so many awesome and amazing Pokemon, and it would be a shame if to not have them all in the best looking game to date. Alongside the potential Pokemon DLC news, and maybe even some teasers for spin-off series like a new Let's Go title, we're also most likely going to get popular teasers for games like Mario Odyssey 2, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and many more. And with all this new game releases coming out for 2023, it means that this year could honestly be one of the best years for Switch gamers, as overall it's really exciting to get fresh entries into popular series. Going back to that 4chan leak image though, a couple other interesting details are that the new parrot to mention is called Heath, and they have some kind of personal connection to the legendary Pokemon of this DLC, with the DLC being titled Magenta Mirage, and that also being the code name of the legendary. Granted, I'm seriously doubting the legitimacy of this leak, as it's still very interesting though to speculate, as this legendary Pokemon shares behaviors with other Pokemon like Darkrai and Celebi, but other interesting details about it is a leaker claims that the Pokemon inspired Professor Tiro and Sada to make their respective time machines, as the Pokemon's powers are centered around the concept of belief, and it's supposedly responsible for the vastly different appearances of the Paradox Pokemon, as it apparently feeds off belief to survive. So overall a very interesting concept for a legendary Pokemon, whether it's real or not. And finally, another thing to note is that in this DLC we will most likely get to see that fusion form of the legendary dogs that we saw in Scarlet and Violet journals, as it's been hinted at since the game's release, and it feels like the Pokemon, whether its name is something like a weird mashup of the three, or if it's something unique, it will play a key role in the DLC story, I believe. But in my personal opinion, I think that the DLC legendary will be a primal form of Zygarde, as again, Kalos and Paldea share a land border, and it wouldn't be crazy, considering its role in the Pokemon world is to protect the living things of the Pokemon equivalent of Earth. But as MatPat says, that is just a theory, and I think whether we actually get what we're thinking or not, whatever the Pokemon company gives us, I'm sure will be an amazing addition to easily the most replayable and incredibly fun game in the franchise's history. That's all from me today, trainers. Don't forget to tune in to the Nintendo Direct. Broadcasting times will be shown on screen, and I will see you next time.